Hey there, guys. Welcome to another episode of the MH Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Miles Harrison. And today, guys, I thought I'd talk to you about wearable devices, the pros, the cons, what do I think about them, and so on, so on. So let's get straight into it. So I love wearable devices. I wear two of them. I've got a Garmin and I've got the Amazon Zen, which is the screenless wearable. And the reason why I've got two on is because one, my Garmin's like my everyday trainer one. This is the one that I kind of like track my live workouts, my runnings and stuff like that. And when I play football, I'm not allowed to wear this watch. So therefore I have my armband on. And also as well, I used to have a Whoop. So I wanted to see the comparisons because the only reason why I didn't go for a Whoop is damn, that thing's expensive. Like the subscriptions on it is absolutely nuts. So I just decided, right, this was £99. Let's give it a whirl. So that's been on my arm for a good part of a year now, where I've had my Garmin for a good few years now. And if you ask anyone, I love my data. I've got spreadsheets on spreadsheets of data. Whenever it comes to football games, and I've got obviously my games recorded, like if I've got the time to, I will track some kind of metric, whether it's how many passes I make or how many times I lost the ball or how many times my coaches yelled at me, bloody yada. Like, I like data. And obviously, being in the game of fitness for a long period of time, I can look at my watch and I can make my own decision. When I was potentially younger, and I again going back to when I had the Whoop, I felt like at times like the device was making the decisions. And I think people need to be mindful of that. I think like there can be a point where there is too much data being thrown at you. And I think with the fact that all this data is becoming vastly easy to assess, first of all, we need to know or understand why we're getting this data. What is this data doing? What decisions is it helping us with? And then when we look at all this data that we have in our screen, watch, phone, like what are we going to do with it? Because if it's just a number and you're not making, or it's not a metric you're not using to make decisions, it's pointless. Like don't waste your time with it. If you're not using HRV, heart rate variability, like don't look at it. If you're looking at heart rate and you're seeing that, oh wow, well, I've been going to the gym a couple of months now and all that. I see my heart rate is dropping. That's a good bit of data. Like that's really, really interesting stuff because what you've been doing for these last couple of months is making you a healthier person. You get me? Fantastic. So we need to make sure that whatever data we are collecting, we need to make sure that it is pointing us in the right direction. But we've got to be at the driving seat. It's going to plan our road. My watch is telling me I got 10,000 steps in not walking. See? So that will go into my next point. But it needs to make the roadmap for us and we need to drive along onto it. The second thing that I want to talk to you about is some margin of error. They're not 100% accurate. Now, if you know me, a saying I like to say is a unreliable source of data, if used enough, is reliable. For example, scales are a really good point. If you go to the scales in my gym, there's 3 scales right next to each other, and they all say different metrics, different weight. That's a clear and cut point. I say that like right. It doesn't matter what scale you use, you're gonna get a different result. But if you just stick at one and you look at the trends, it'll tell you something. Smartwatches, devices are the exact same. And you could go out there, you can look at the studies and you can see Apple Watches versus Garmin's versus Whoop versus Fitband, Fitbit. There we go. And they'll all have different calculations of how they do it. They'll have different ways of scoring stuff to see how many calories that you have burned. And like I've just said, all of them will have some margin of error. They're not 100% accurate. You can't get a really reliable source for heart rate through your wrist. That's why track athletes have heart rate monitors on their chest, because it's closer to the chest to get better results. That's why also as well people wear ones on the bicep, because it's a little bit closer, so they get a little bit more accurate. But even still then, like, there's a bit of delay with it. There's sometimes we're a little bit wrong. But again, don't go get massively fussed on like which is the best one and stuff like that. Like, yeah, one might be a little bit better and vice versa. But if you keep using the watch for a period of time, you will get some feedback. So you need to be able to develop this relationship with your wearable devices where you can look at it from a lens, but not have an emotional attachment to it. You not need to say like, oh, this watch has said I've burned this many calories and stuff, because it's probably wrong. And if you get really drummed up in the numbers, like I've done in the past, I've really got like, oh, well, this says I'm like this and this says I'm like that. You'll probably find that your ability or your confidence to make decisions yourself will diminish. And we can't be having that. But to wrap this all up, do I think they're good tools to have? Yes. I think that for someone like myself who's been very aware of my daily habits, very, very hooked up on performance trends and all this stuff and the research and stuff, like, I think that I've got a pretty good awareness of my body. I know what things are going to make me super tired and what things are going to make me recover better and so on and so on. Who maybe doesn't have that kind of awareness, I think they're really useful tools. I think, like, for example, I think the step count on most watches now, brilliant, fantastic. Like, a flick of the wrist and you can tell you how many steps you've done a day. If you're someone who's got a potential step goal to get to, 2 seconds and you know where you're at. That's valuable data. That's reliable. That's something that if you use on a more regular basis, that'll really help you out. I think that's it then, guys. So I hope you guys have taken some pointers of this. I don't completely hate wearable devices. I really think they're good, useful tools to get in some form of data. I just think we need to understand the limitations and the drawbacks of them and understand for what they are. Something to help us to achieve a goal. They are not the main drivers. You are the main driver. And anyway, I'll leave on that point. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the podcast, guys. I'll see you all in the next one.